Hello and welcome to Nidhrania YouTube channel. My name is Branislav Berec, and in this video we're going to learn how to play Karak, a game designed by Petr Mikša and Roman Hladík, published by Albi. It's a game for 2 to 5 players, plays in about 45 minutes, and the recommended age is 7 years or more. And in Karak, players are going to explore the mysterious Karak castle, and they will fight monsters, find equipment and treasures, and the player with the most treasures becomes the victor of the game. So let's take a look at how it plays. To set the game up, place this starting dungeon tile in the middle of the table and then shuffle all the remaining tiles and place them nearby, or you can use the holder which comes with the game and put all the tiles into the holder. I'll place it off the camera. And then take all the monster and treasure tokens, put them all into the bag and mix it well. And each player takes one inventory sheet with 5 hit point tokens and 1 hero card. You can choose any hero or you can choose them randomly, and also take a hero standee which corresponds to your hero card. All players place their heroes on the starting dungeon tile, randomly choose the starting player, and that's the end of the setup. In Karak, players explore this mysterious dungeon of Karak Castle. They can meet and fight these monsters with valuable treasures, and by defeating them, they can gain new equipment, they can unlock these chests and gain treasures, and when any player defeats this dragon, the game ends, and the player with the most of these treasures, most of the treasure points, wins the game. The game is played in turns, starting with the first player and then continuing in a clockwise direction, and on your turn you may perform up to 4 moves, and then maybe you will fight a monster, maybe you will collect treasures or other equipment, or maybe you will heal. During your moves, you will discover new tiles, new sections of this Karak castle, and at the end of your turn is the next player's turn in a clockwise direction. Your turn always ends after you perform 4 moves, or after you fight a monster, or immediately after you collect a treasure or any other equipment on your tile, or after you heal. The goal of the game is to collect and unlock these treasure tiles. To unlock them, you will need these keys, and you also collect a special treasure with the ruby after you defeat this dragon, which triggers the end of the game. After that, after the dragon is defeated, the game ends immediately and the player with the most treasure points wins the game. Each treasure is worth 1 victory point, and this special treasure with the ruby is worth 1.5 victory points. So the player who defeats the dragon may not necessarily win the game. The player with the most treasure tokens, most treasures, including the treasure from the defeated dragon, wins the game. Now let's take a closer look at the player's turn. On your turn you have 4 moves. One move is moving from one dungeon tile to an adjacent dungeon tile, or from your current dungeon tile to an empty space which is adjacent to your current tile. That is called entering an undiscovered zone. And when you move through discovered zones, they may contain some treasures, they may also contain monsters, or they may contain some equipment. So when you enter a discovered zone, you may either fight that monster or collect these treasures or equipment. I'm going to cover all these options in the next couple of minutes. So first, let's take a look at entering an undiscovered zone. When you decide to enter an undiscovered zone, you have to draw a new dungeon tile, and after revealing the tile, you must connect the tile with your current tile. By connecting it, I mean these entrances must match. So in this example, you have to place it like this. It may dead end other tiles which are adjacent, Obviously, you would not be able to place it like this because you need to move from this tile to this one. So, when you place the tile, there are several options. When you draw these types of tiles, they represent rooms in the dungeon. Immediately draw a new token from the bag. And there are only two options. You either draw a monster, which means you immediately have to fight that monster. I'll talk about that in a minute. Or you draw the treasure token. In that case, if you have a key in your inventory, you may immediately unlock that treasure, and that will end your turn. If you don't have a key in your inventory, you may simply continue moving. When you draw these type of tiles, nothing happens. These are just tunnels. You can also find these type of tunnels. So you simply move to the next tile and nothing happens. Then when you find a teleport, which looks like this, when you find the first one, nothing happens. However, later in the game, when another teleport tile is discovered, you may move from one teleport tile to another as one move. So all these teleports are considered to be adjacent to each other. So, for example, you can jump from this dungeon tile to this one as one move. And finally, when you find a tile with this heart icon, these are healing fountains. Note that one healing fountain is also on the starting tile. You may heal on such tile, and you may heal fully, which means you restore all your hit points. In that case, you immediately end your turn. So, those are all types of tiles you can find in the game: rooms, tunnels, teleports, and healing fountains. And before we move on, let's talk about the equipment. On your player board, which is called your inventory sheet, there are 3 slots for spells, 2 slots for weapons, and 1 slot for key. Those items look like this. And you gain these items by defeating monsters during combat. You defeat monsters in these rooms. When you gain a weapon, place it in one of these 2 weapon slots. Weapons add power to your dice rolls during the combat. There are 2 types of spells. These are magic bolts. When you use the magic bolt, it adds +1 to your dice roll. After that, you remove that magic bolt from the game. So you don't return it back to the bag, you can put it back to the box, you have to remove it from the game. The second type of spell is this portal of healing. You can use it on any player, not only for yourself. Again, when you use it, you remove it from the game, and when you use it on any player, including yourself, that player immediately moves for no movement cost to the healing fountain. You can move to any healing fountain in the Karak castle. Then you will fully heal all your wounds, including the Karak curse, which again I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then, since it's a magic spell, you can continue your turn if you have any movements remaining. And when it comes to keys, you can have maximum 1 key at a time, and keys are used to unlock the treasure chest. So when you get to a tile with a treasure chest and you have the key, again, remove the key from the game. That unlocks the treasure chest token. You can take the token and place it somewhere next to your player board, next to your inventory sheet. Congratulations, you have collected a treasure and you gained 1 victory point. Now, when you enter a new undiscovered zone and it contains a room and you draw a monster token, you immediately have to fight that monster. The combat procedure is very easy. Simply roll both dice. So here we have 2 + 4, that's 6. That's your power. The power of the enemy, the power of the monster, is the number on the tile. Here it's 9. Then you can add the power from your equipment, and all the equipment tiles remain on your inventory sheet. So here you can add additional +2 and +1 to your power. So 3 + 6 is 9. And for each magic bolt you remove from the game, you can add additional +1 power. So this would be total 10. If you remove this one, it would be 11, and so on. If your hero has any abilities, you can use those as well. I will cover all these abilities at the end of the video. And now, when you compare your total power, so that's the number on dice, plus your equipment, plus any spells that you have used, if your total power is lower than the total power of the monster, you lose 1 life and you have to move back to the tile where you came from. In case of a tie, so your power is equal to the power of the monster, nothing happens, you don't lose a life, you simply move back to the tile you came from. And if you win, if your total power is higher than the power of the monster, you defeated the monster, take the monster token, flip it to the other side, and you can keep it. If your inventory is full, because here you only have 2 slots for weapons, you can choose any of those equipment tokens from your inventory, drop it on your current space. It can be collected by any other player later in the game, and replace it with the new weapon you have just gained. That also applies to spells and potentially to the keys as well. Regardless of the result, so regardless whether you lose, win, or there's a tie, your turn immediately ends. When any player defeats this mummy, the mummy has this Curse of Karak token printed on it. That player obviously collects this monster token. However, in addition to that, that player may decide to inflict this Curse of Karak to any other player. When they do, place this Curse of Karak token on that player. The player may not use these hero abilities until that player heals in any of those healing fountains, or until that player defeats another mummy and moves the Curse of the Karak token to any other player. Now let's talk about these hit points and healing. Every time you heal in the healing fountain, you can heal fully, which means all your hit points are restored back to the healthy state. If you have a Karak curse and you heal yourself, you also heal that Karak curse, so you can place the token nearby. However, this healing immediately ends your turn. Now, if you lose all your hit points, you are unconscious. However, you never die. On your next turn, you don't do anything apart from healing 1 hit point, and then you end your turn. There is one exception. If you are on this starting tile and you lose the combat against a monster, you have to move back to the starting tile. There you can fully heal immediately and end your turn. So, we have covered all the options of revealing a new tile when you enter an undiscovered zone. And now let's take a look at what happens when you enter a discovered zone. If there is a room which is empty, then nothing happens. You simply go through and that's your one move. The same applies to the tunnels. When you move through the tunnels, nothing happens, you just spent one of your moves. When you enter a room with a monster, you have to fight it, and that ends your turn. If there is an equipment in the room, you may collect it, and that ends your turn. If there is a chest on that tile and you have the key, you can unlock the chest, and again, that immediately ends your turn. And when you enter the existing revealed discovered healing fountain, you may completely heal yourself. And again, that healing immediately ends your turn. The end of the game is triggered when any player defeats this dragon. When you do, take the tile, take the dragon token as usual. When you flip it to the other side, it shows the treasure with the ruby. This one is worth 1.5 victory points, so the ruby adds additional 0.5 victory point, or half of the victory point. And now all players count up their treasures, and the player with the most treasure points wins the game. So in this example we have 1, 2, 3.5 victory points. So the player who defeated the dragon doesn't necessarily win the game. Other players may simply have more treasures than the one who defeated the dragon. And finally, let's take a look at these hero skills and abilities. You can find their description in the rulebook, but let me quickly cover them here in the video as well. This is Taya the Oracle. This ability says that when Taya uses her first move, the very first move, to fight a monster, she gains +1 to her roll. So in this case it would be 6 + 1, 7, and then you can add the power from your weapons, spells, and so on. The second ability applies when Taya, as an oracle, has to draw a new token from the bag. For example, when discovering a new room. When she does, instead of drawing just one token, she can draw 2 tokens and choose which one to use, and the other one is returned back to the bag. This is Victorious the Swordsman. When he rolls a 1 in the combat, he can re-roll that 1 as many times as he needs to. In this case, I rolled 6, but if I rolled 1, again, Victorious can re-roll that 1 until he gets a better result than a 1. The other ability says that if he rolls 6, then his move at the end of the combat does not finish, which means he can continue moving or actually fighting the same monster in case he lost the combat. In that case you need to move back to the tile you came from, so when he rolls 6 he can continue the turn, which means he can immediately attack the same monster again. Then this is Argentus the Wizard. The first ability says that he doesn't discard these magic ball spells when he uses them. That doesn't apply to these healing portals. When he uses these are removed from the game. However, these magic bolts can be used multiple times because Argentus as a wizard doesn't remove them from the game after they've been used. However, if he's cursed, then he has to remove these magic bolts as well, similar to any other hero. The second ability says that since he's a wizard, he can move through walls. So, for example, here, any other hero could only move to the left or to the right. Argentus the Wizard can also go through the wall and go directly to this teleport tile. He can only do this on tiles which are already discovered, which means he cannot go through the wall here to an undiscovered zone. This is Horan the Warrior. The first ability says that he can do a double attack, which simply means that when he rolls the dice and he's not happy with the result, then he can re-roll both of them, however only once per combat, but then he must accept the result from that second roll, even if it's lower than the first one. In this case, he would be probably very happy. His second ability says that when he loses all his hit points, so all these hit points will be turned to this side, he doesn't fall unconscious. Instead, he immediately teleports to any healing fountain and immediately heals all his hit points. That obviously ends the turn. This is Lord Xenros, the Warlock. His first skill allows him to sacrifice a hit point to gain +1 power to the combat roll. So after rolling the dice, here we have 4, he may decide to sacrifice a hit point and add +1 to the power, so this one would be 5. However, there's a limitation, he can only use this once per combat. His second ability is essentially a teleport ability or teleport swap with another hero. It costs 4 movement points, which means you can only do it at the start of your turn, and you simply switch your position with another hero. And finally, this is Adeline the Thief. The first skills allows her to win any ties. So for example, here we have the monster with the power 8. She rolled 8 as well. That would be tie in the normal circumstances. However, she wins the tie and she defeats the monster. The second ability is called the stealth, which means when she enters a tile with the monster, she may decide to avoid the fight, avoid the combat, and simply continue moving either to a discovered zone or to an undiscovered zone. So that's it, that's how you play Karak. If you have any questions or comments, I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. My name is Branislav Berec. You've been watching a video tutorial for the game called Karak, published by Albi, and hope to see you on the next one.